Welcome to the Nigerian Economic Summit happening at the FCT here in Abuja, and it's tagged Nest 31, or we themed it Nest 31, but it's looking at the reform initiative, building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. Today we're speaking with some of the participants, high-level dignitaries who are attending today and facilitating conversations about how to build a progressive Nigeria by 2030. And one of such is the Director, Corporate and Regulatory Affairs, Olam Agri Africa, Ade Adefeko. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Why is this conversation important? Why is it important for us to look at building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030?
Interesting conversations, interesting discussions. We've had 30 years. This is the 31st. I'm privileged to have been part of 25 of them. So you can call me a bit of a veteran, but again, I'm not a Methuselah. But speaking to that, we've been talking about conversations over a period of time. And for us, we look at 5-year periods, But as a nation, we have been used to so much ad hocism. But right now, we're being strategic, we're being intentional, we're being deliberate. And I think at NES, we always make sure that the conversation is something that we put front burner on the pedestal. And for us, economic prosperity, shared compassion and humanity is important for us to grow as a nation. Right. And for us, we've been talking about geometric progression. We've been doing things in an arithmetic mode. Right? Well, we should do things now in a geometric mode. Food security, national security, food sovereignty, these are all things that we should be speaking to.
Olam Agri Africa operates across several countries.
Yes.
From your experience, what would you say are some of the challenges that you have to deal with, or some of the maybe policies that limit cross-border trade?
Interesting question. I usually don't like to speak to challenges. I like to speak to opportunities, because challenges will always be there. In any country you find yourself, there will be one challenge or the other. There's the ACFTA, there are many things, a plethora of issues. One thing that I don't particularly find interesting in Africa is that we are speaking to intra-African trade, but we can't even travel amongst ourselves. Okay? So the African Continental Free Trade Area, 1.5 trillion, 1.5 billion people, 55 countries, the last country being South Sudan. We talk, but we don't action things. I just came back from Algeria about 5 or 6 weeks ago. To get to Algeria, I needed a visa. I'm based in Lagos. I came to Algeria, to Abuja. The visa fee was 78,000 naira. It cost me 450,000 naira to fly to Abuja. So the cost of flying to Abuja was more expensive than the visa I came to procure. Two things. Why didn't I pick up the visa on arrival in Algiers? Or better still, why didn't I pick it up at the consulate in Lagos? So for me, the African Union passport that everybody has been talking about is more or less a mirage. Unfortunately, the bulk of the people that have the passport are members of staff of the AU. So if the members of the staff of the AU have the passport, and the likes of myself and other Nigerian or African entrepreneurs and businessmen don't have the passport, I'm worried. Okay? The EU passport, let's have the EU passport. Agenda, whatever they call it. Agenda 63, Agenda 64. We're talking about cohesion, we're talking about intra-African trade, movement and all that. We need to move across boundaries, first and foremost. If you don't move across boundaries, how do you want to do trade? Look at trade amongst ourselves in Africa. The trade is between 10% and 11%. In other countries, between the EU countries amongst themselves, it's between 30 and 40, it's sometimes 50%. We are struggling with 10%, between 10 and 14% intra-African trade. It's unfortunate, but like I said, I don't want to dwell on the negatives. Olam Agri has been in Africa for over 35 years, okay, and still counting. And for us, it's from farm to fork, from feed to fiber. Rice, wheat milling, pasta, and the like. So, animal feed, in Nigeria, we're strong. I will say unarguably, we're the largest agribusiness company in Nigeria. And we are doing a lot in that space, ensuring food security, ensuring food sovereignty. We're coming to the theme of Nigerian Economic Summit, which is why we're here. This summit, people talk about it being a talk shop. It's not a talk shop. For every action, there's always an equal and opposite reaction. But you know what? What doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So every year we measure, and we say to ourselves, where were we, where are we, and where do we want to be? And that, I think, is what the constant refrain should be. And I like particularly New Central. You guys have been putting the people's feet to fire. asking the right questions, having the right conversations, in the right room, and hoping for the right answers. So for you guys at New Central, I think for your tomorrow, you are giving your today. For us at NES, and for those of us in the private sector, we are doing our bit. We must move geometrically, not arithmetically. And I think that is one reason why at every summit that we come to, we must have that conversation. 5-year plans, 10-year plans, what is important is we must be strategic, we must be intentional, we must be deliberate. And again, we must make sure that we work towards shared prosperity.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, there's so many things that come to mind easily, but I want us to touch on something before we wrap up the conversation about food security, yes, which you had made reference to, yes, earlier. How important a conversation is that? I know we're having a CEO roundtable tomorrow, yes, and this is going to form the core of the conversation. But how important is food security, an area to explore in this conference?
It's important to note, and I say this unapologetically, food security is an integral part of national security. If you look at what happened in the Arab Spring and all that, what started as a small, I think it was in Tunisia, self-immolation. Somebody just, self-immolated. And before you knew it, there was a conflagration across the entire Maghreb. And that's how it started, the Arab Spring. And of course, the rest is history. The world is polarized. There are different conversations happening. There are different tension points. But at the heart of it is food security. Food security, again, I repeat, is an integral part of national security. Nigeria recognizes that fact and says to themselves, we must do something about it. But again, food security is not enough. Food sovereignty is what we're calling on. We must be food secure, yes, but we must be food sovereign. And that's our collective responsibility.
Can you expand further on that?
Food sovereignty means that we are able to take care of ourselves in terms of food security.
Can we at this point, because that a conversation that has been brought up over and over again about Nigeria being able to feed itself with what we have, with the current realities, can Nigeria feed herself?
Nigeria can feed herself. We're the largest producer of cassava in the world, largest producer of cocoyam in the world, largest producer of yam in the world. Our problem has always been from the hinterland for it to come to the market. So it's from hinterland to market that is the problem. But again, these are inefficiencies that are being worked on. Infrastructure is important. Government must be an enabler. Government has no business in business. So sometimes when big government wants to get involved in business, the private sector calls them and says, you know what, be an enabler. Put policies in place, policies that outlive regimes. So don't have a policy that is 4-year, 8-year. Have long-term plans that speak to these things. And I think government, the present administration is trying. I was speaking off-air or offset, like we say, right? Yeah. I was speaking offset and we're talking about energy security. Prior to now, we had about 2 rigs or thereabout working. Now we're talking about 66 rigs. Of course, for those of you who are in the oil industry, the more rigs you have, that shows you the production, the drilling, and everything that is going on. We're doing round about maybe 1.7, 1.8 million barrels per day. That's with condensate. Net, we're talking about 1.5, 1.6. Not bad. And I think over time, by maybe 2025, 2026, 2027, we should be ramping up to about 2.5 million barrels per day. Prior to now, we're doing between 600 to 900,000 barrels per day. That is poor. For a country that was number one in terms of oil production and oil exports. Right now, I think we're a distant third after Angola and after Algeria. But again, there's this song that says, joy is coming. So joy is coming.
Okay, joy is coming. And the joy that we're looking forward to here at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group is that in the next 5 years, we have an inclusive economy. What will need to be put in place? And I ask this because beyond the theme of the Nigerian Economic Summit, it's also in line with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, yes. Goal 2 being zero hunger, which is also something that your organization keys into as well. So what steps do you think we need to take and what should be put in place to ensure that by 2030 we have a truly improved, advanced and an inclusive economy, especially in the food sector?
You've asked me 3 questions. But as you asked me 3 questions in one, rolled in one, I'll answer it by saying one thing. I agree with you. We want to be food secure, but to be food secure, you have to have what you call sustainability. Sustainability is at the core. For us in Nigeria, we're not doing badly. But there's what you call the Malabo Declaration. The Malabo Declaration, I can't quite remember whether it's 2013 now or 2014, speaks to the fact that 10% of the national budget of every country should be dedicated to agriculture. Nigeria has been struggling between 1.8 and 3%. Again, government has no business in business. But again, you must provide the enabling environment. Mechanization, providing fertilizer and seeds, funding, making sure that we have cooperatives who can offtake from farmers is an entire ecosystem. From seed to shelf, from farm to fork. Very important, very critical. We will be food secure, we are food secure. We will be food sovereign, we are food sovereign. Are we doing things right? Yes. Quantum leap? No. Arithmetic progression? Yes. Geometric is what we need. 2, 4, 6, 8, not 1, 2, 3, 4. I leave that to you now to close.
A great way to end the conversation. Thank you so much for your time with us
Thank
today.
you very much for having me.